Dear students, this is the second class of renal physiology. The first class being the introduction to the subject of renal physiology. This is the second class I am taking consecutively. Now, today's class is a special type of class that is rather a continuation of the subject of introduction to renal physiology, which really I could not cover on that day. This class is dealing with the vascular system of kidney. I thought a special mention or special discussion or explanation is required to the intricate and complex vascular system of kidney, and that's why this class is designed. Now, I prepared a presentation which I will share with you, and accordingly we shall continue with the class. So if we share the screen, and this is my class, that the physiology of the renovascular system, and that I am going to cover for a period of around 30 minutes. I shall try to finish up by 30 minutes. So what is renovascular system? It is a typical vascular system in the kidney, and it has got certain amount of speciality, certain amount of complexity, certain amount of atypical features, which is pertinent to the functions of kidney. And that's why a thorough explanation and understanding of this intricate renovascular system is needed. Now, have a little recap about the nephron. As we all know that nephron is the functional unit of kidney. Now, one correction I need to make in this juncture regarding my last class. During the description of nephron in my last class, I erroneously told you that each kidney contains lakhs of nephron. It is not really so. It was a mistake. It is rather a million of nephron. Each kidney, each individual kidney contains around 1 to 1.5 millions of nephron. That means around 10 to 15 lakhs of nephron in each human kidney. That is a correction I made. Now, if we recap nephron and we visualize the nephron again with this typical diagram, so there are two kinds of nephron. One is cortical nephron or short-looped nephron. Another is juxtamedullary nephron or long-loop nephron. And all these nephrons are oriented in corticomedullary fashion, corticomedullary orientation, which I have time and again impressed upon you in my last class, and I will impress upon you this particular point even today. So this is the picture of the nephron. And there are two kinds of nephron, short-looped and long-looped. Short-looped are of around 85% of the total nephron population, and long-looped is around 15% of the total renal population. Now, regarding nephron orientation, I told you again and again that this is the sagittal cut section of nephron, and you can very clearly see the corticomedullary orientation of the nephron. And if we magnify it further, you can very clearly see the corticomedullary orientation of the nephron. So this typical corticomedullary orientation is a very, very important feature of nephron. Now, next come to the renovascular system. Now, within renovascular system, we shall try to cover certain important features. That means the as per the, we understand about the nephron orientation. Now here we also understand the vascular orientation. We shall also understand a typical feature of vascular heterogeneity. And lastly, we shall understand about the special capillary system in the kidney. So these are the three subsections of my today's class, which I shall cover one after another. Now have a little discussion or description of the renovascular system. As I utilized in my last class a blank paint platform, I shall again repeat that very figure. I will again repeat that very picture today to describe the renovascular system. A major part I have already shown you, but I will repeat it again because I want that every single student will practice this diagram in their uh, exercise book and become a master of it. So if we draw the diagram of the kidney, like this, so this is the kidney. This is the upper pole of the kidney, and this is the ureter, and suppose this is the cart end of the ureter. So this is a single kidney, and if we show you the corticomedullary differentiation, it can be looking like that. That means this is the cortical part or cortical layer or cortical mantle. This is the and this is the two divisions of medulla. That is the two divisions of medulla. That is the, we can write like that. That is the outer part is the cortex. Inner part is the outer medulla. So this is the cortex. Cortex. This is OM, that is outer medulla, and this is IM, that is inner. So this is the picture I have drawn in the last class. And if we just again draw the left kidney like that, just simply copy and paste and just rotate, copy and paste and rotate. And this is the left kidney. And if we just a bit enlarge it a bit so that it will be easy for us to draw. If we a bit enlarge it, so this is the key. Now in between, as I have depicted yesterday in the last class also, in between there is aorta. So this is aorta, and this aorta, and this is the left renal artery. This is the left renal artery. So let us draw. Let us draw the renovascular system. So like last class, so this is the segmental branch of the renal vessels, renal artery. This is the segmental branch of renal arteries. This is the segmental branch of renal arteries like this. Renal arteries. From there, the interlobular branches. So these are the interlobular branches. These are the interlobular branches, and each of these interlobular branches are giving out the arcuate branches along the corticomedullary junction. It is giving out the arcuate branches along the corticomedullary junction, and thereby form an arterial arch along the corticomedullary junction. It forms an arterial arch along the corticomedullary junction, and from that arterial arch there is longitudinal branches, they are known as interlobular vessels, and that is the end point of the renal arterial system, from where the origin of the afferent arteriole, and this afferent arteriole is breaking down among themselves to form glomerular capillary plexus, and these glomerular capillary plexus again reunite to form efferent arteriole. This much I have described in my last class. Now, from this efferent arteriole, what will be the fate of the efferent arteriole? There are rather two fates. There are rather two fates of efferent arteriole. Sorry. One group of efferent arteriole will form another kind of capillary plexus, which is like that of a typical capillary, like any other part of the body, typical capillary. It will form another type of capillary plexus. And this is known as peritibular capillary plexus. Peritibular capillary plexus. And some efferent arterioles, they will form a special type of capillary, which will form a kind of an U-shaped structure, and its organization is again corticomedullary. Yet other an U-shaped structure, which will form an U-shaped structure, and its orientation is again corticomedullary, U-shaped structure arteriole, and these things are known as vasa recta. These vasa recta, if we draw without using color, this vasa recta orientation is again corticomedullary. Like that of the orientation of the nephron. We all know that orientation of the nephron is corticomedullary. The orientation of vasa recta is also corticomedullary. So this, and at the end of this vasa recta or peritibular capillary plexus, there is genesis of the venular system, and that vein will end up into the small vein, medium size vein, large vein, renal vein, and will come out as renal vein. From the kidney to enter into the vena cava. So there is vena cava, and with the vena cava, they will join with the vena cava. So this is in very brief about the very cursory glance, a overall description of renal vasculature system. Now let me return again to my original PowerPoint presentation. So I made this description with my little bit handmade depiction of the renovascular system, but we need to know further detail. Now, if we see this diagram, this is nothing but the orientation of the nephrons. Nephrons are oriented corticomedullary. Nephrons are originated, that means glomerulus is usually situated in the cortex. Not usually, it is situated in the cortex, either in the outer cortex or in the inner cortex, but it is situated in the cortex. So this is the glomerulus, which is situated, glomerular part of the nephron. This is situated in the cortex. And it is dipping down the medulla. So this is the orientation of the nephron. Here only up to outer medulla is shown, then it is cut. It is dipping down even in the inner medulla, at least some of the nephrons, at least the long loop nephrons. Now let us see what is the orientation of the vessels. This is the orientation of the vessels. You can see the various types of. So this is the arterial arch at the corticomedullary junction. And this is the intralobular vessels or intralobular artery, and from intralobular artery there is origin of the afferent arteriole. This is the afferent arteriole, efferent arteriole, the peritibular capillary plexus, etc. And this is the orientation of the renal vasculature. Again, it is corticomedullary. Again, it is corticomedullary. So, class now, if we just overlap these two pictures, so this is the overall comprehensive picture where the orientation of nephron and orientation of renal vasculature, they are overlap with each other, and this is what is happening in the kidney. So nephrons are oriented corticomedullary, renovascular system is oriented corticomedullary, and they are acting hand by hand, hand in hand. They are acting hand in hand. So this is the orientation aspect. If we see this diagram, this is a quite complex one. In order to explain this diagram, I made all the earlier diagram, so you can very clearly see this is the arcuate vessel from where interlobular vessels are originating, and the afferent arteriole, capillary plexus, efferent arteriole, and the peritubular capillary plexus, and all these vasa recta are there in the mainly in the. So vasa recta is mainly in the medulla. Vasa recta is mainly in the medulla, and peritubular capillary plexus are mainly in the cortical part of the nephron. So this is the orientation aspect of the renovascular system, along with the orientation aspect of the nephron. So if we see this picture again, so from kidney is enlarged, and a portion of the corticomedullary slice of corticomedullary tissue when enlarged, and we can very clearly see same thing. So this is the arcuate vessel, this is interlobular vessels, this red one, interlobular artery, from there the afferent arteriole, capillary, glomerular capillary, efferent arteriole, then peritubular capillary plexus, and also is the vasa recta. This is the vasa recta. So this picture is very, very vital. So this is the picture which you need to master, which you need to practice, draw and practice it in at your home as a part of the preparation. So this is what I have described till now, and this is the orientation aspect of the renovascular system. Clearly the renovascular system here, the clear-cut renovascular system is very typically described along with the description of the nephron. So this is about the orientation part. Next thing is the vascular heterogeneity. What is vascular heterogeneity? So heterogeneity or heterogeneousness, the pattern of heterogeneousness is opposite to homogeneous. So homogeneous means symmetrical, equal. Heterogeneous means asymmetrical, unequal. So this is next is the issue of the vascular heterogeneity. If we see this earlier picture again, this cut section, sagittal cut section of the kidney, if you carefully see, you can see that there is a clear-cut difference between the cortical shading and medullary shading, shade of the cortex and medulla. Here it is a rather a picture photograph is rather a negative. So if it is made positive, this will becomes darker and this will becomes lighter, isn't it? If this negative is developed as a positive, so this will become darker and this will become lighter, and that is what is there in the kidney. The cortical part of the kidney is better vascularized. It is vascularized more, cortical portion, and medullary part is vascularized less. So if we see this diagram, it is a very interesting and very clear-cut diagram. You can very clearly see the vascularity pattern of the corticomedullary tissue. So in the cortex, the major vascular flow is there, major vascular tissue. Cortex is hugely vascularized. Outer medulla is less vascularized and inner medulla is least vascularized. So it is a slice, it's a section where you can very clearly see cortex is greater vascularized. And what is the difference? What is the degree of heterogeneity? If we try to ask the question, what is the degree of heterogeneity? It is massive heterogeneity. That means lion's share is enjoyed by cortex. It is amounting to around 93%. 93% of vascularity is there in cortex. Only 6% in outer medulla and only 1% in inner medulla. So this is very, very interesting. So around 93% in cortex, around 6% in inner medulla, and around 1% in outer medulla. So that is the degree of vascular heterogeneity which is observed in kidney. And this feature is not present in any other organ of our body. Kidney is peculiar in that it exhibits a feature of vascular heterogeneity. That means tissue perfusion pattern of blood. Sorry. Tissue perfusion pattern of blood. The tissue perfusion pattern of blood is hugely different. In the cortex, the tissue perfusion of blood is maximum. In the outer medulla, it is very low, and in inner medulla, it is further low to the extent of 93%, 6%, and 1%. So this is a picture of vascular heterogeneity. Now, what is the outcome or what is the implications of this vascular heterogeneity? You may ask me. I will answer you. Please hold this question. This is a very, very interesting and important question. But you must hold it for another 5 or 6 classes. And at the end of it, we shall describe it, because for the time being, it is not much relevant and it will be difficult for you to understand that. So please hold this question, that what is the implication of this huge vascular heterogeneity? I will answer at the end of my series. So this is the picture of vascular heterogeneity. And the last thing is the specialness, atypicalness, speciality of the renovascular capillary system. Now, to understand the speciality of the renovascular capillary system, we need to understand what is the feature of ordinary capillary. That you need to understand first. What is the feature of ordinary capillary? Now, the feature of ordinary capillary is just this. So there is arteriole, and this arteriole is broken down into the capillary. They rejoin to form venule, and that is the venule. So this is the arteriolar end of the capillary. This is the arteriolar end of the capillary. So this is the arteriole or end arteriole, and this is the arteriolar end of the capillary. And this is the venule, and this is the venular end of the capillary. And here, a number of physiological activities are taking place like this. So this is the arteriolar end, this is the venular end, and there are a number of activities are taking place, number of forces are acting on this arteriolar end and venular end of the number of forces are acting. Some are acting outside, outwards, some are acting inwards, and these forces, as I have described in my cardiovascular lectures, during my cardiovascular lectures, if you remember, at that time, I have actually drawn those pictures on the whiteboard. So these forces are acting on the capillaries, in the arterial end, on the venular end. They are acting on that. These forces are called Starling forces. And what are those Starling forces? There are 4 typical Starling forces: PC, PI, Pi C, and Pi I. PC means capillary hydrostatic pressure. PI means interstitial tissue hydrostatic pressure. Pi C means capillary oncotic pressure. And Pi I means interstitial tissue oncotic pressure. So this everything I have described during my cardiovascular days. So this is the picture of the ordinary capillary. If I repeat, that ordinary capillary is originating from an arteriole and end up in a venule, where various Starling forces are acting, leading to capillary filtration. So fluid are moving away, moving out of the muscular system near the arteriolar end of the capillary, and fluid are drawn inside the muscular system near the venular end of the capillary. And I have told you the specific calculations, figures, values, and numericals, which will repeat today also. So this is about the ordinary capillary. Now let us see about the glomerular capillary. See, first thing, this is a glomerular capillary. What is the conspicuous feature of the glomerular capillary? Or what is the important difference of glomerular capillary from an ordinary capillary? Very importantly, here, if you see carefully, everything is red. So glomerular capillary is originating from an arteriole and end up into an arteriole again instead of a venule. So glomerular capillary is a very atypical capillary which is originating from an arteriole and end up in an arteriole. So this is the point which I like to drive home. Very important point. Glomerular capillary originating from arteriole and end up in an arteriole. And that is known as afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole. And as a result of that, as a result of this passage of blood, here at the endothelial-epithelial junction, there is a filtration slit, filtration barrier. There the filtration is taking place. A kind of capillary filtration is taking place, which is known as glomerular filtration. And this is known as glomerular filtration. And similar forces are also acting, but albeit certain differences there. That's why we call it modified Stirling. So there is glomerular filtration driven by certain forces, and they are a bit different than the ordinary capillary. So we call it modified Stirling. So if we compare it, it's an ordinary capillary, and this is a glomerular capillary, and this is the difference. Ordinary capillary is originating from arteriole, ending up in a venule. Glomerular capillary originating from arteriole and ending in an arteriole again. So this is a very conspicuous difference, very marked difference, important difference, crucially important difference between ordinary capillary and glomerular capillary. Another point I like to impress upon you, another point that is a feature of this glomerular capillary. As glomerular capillary is originating from arteriole, end up in an arteriole, both are arteriole, and we know the picture of arteriole, feature of arteriole. Just try to remember the cardiovascular case. Arterioles are having a strong circular muscle coat. Having a strong circular muscle coat, which are mostly unitary in nature, and having a stretch sensitivity, pacemaker activity, etc. If you remember that. So it's a single unit type of smooth muscle. So arteriolar smooth muscle are predominant circular muscle coat, single unit variety of smooth muscle, and they are having a stretch sensitivity, having pacemaker activity, and very sensitive to circulatory vasoactive substance. These are all I have described during our cardiovascular test. As both are arteriole, afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole, both are arteriole. So they are undergoing a remarkable degree of vasoconstriction. Unlike venules in ordinary capillaries, in glomerular capillaries, both ends are arterial end, and as they are arterioles, they are subjected to, they are very often, they are very efficient, competent as a veno or a vasoconstricting element. So this radius, so afferent and efferent, radius of afferent and efferent arteriole, or in other words, afferent arteriole resistance ratio is playing a very, very important role in generation of hydrostatic pressure in glomerulus. Degree of constriction of the afferent and efferent arteriole. Ratio of constriction, in other words, afferent arteriole, efferent arteriole resistance ratio plays a very, very important role in determining the glomerular activity, determining the activity at the glomerular capillary plexus that we shall describe in subsequent lectures. So within renovascular system, we have more or less described the orientation aspect of the renovascular system, heterogeneity of the renovascular system, and atypicality or speciality of the capillary system of the renovascular system. Thank you. Thank you. So that is the class about the renovascular system. I successful in keeping my lecture within 30 minutes. And in the next class, or based upon these two classes, first class and today's class, I will take up a very, very important topic, that is the glomerular function or glomerular filtration. I would request you attentively go through these lectures, preferably use earphone, take down notes, frame your question and doubts, ask those questions. I am here to answer this. Thank you.